Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rogue Record Music. Welcome to episode 8 of the show. I'm getting better. I was going to say slow. I've been slow at getting episodes out. I'm trying to get this channel ramped back up while Right Between the Eyes podcast is on a awkward hiatus. We're trying to get back to that show. And I'm going to actually be recording something for Right Between the Eyes with Brant over at In My Head that's going to be featured around the video that you just clicked on, hopefully to watch here on my satellite channel. It is Collection Trifecta, so if you can kind of read the banner at the top on it before you clicked it and you saw a picture of a LP, a cassette, and a CD, this is a video. I've been watching people show off their music collections. Brendan Snyder's got a really cool channel, and he's been showing, like, here's all my Scorpions, his most recent, my Scorpion CD collection. Here's my Bon Jovi CD collection. Here's my Ace Frehley CD collection, etc., etc. And I thought I would kind of do something along those lines, and at some point maybe I'll do like here's my whole Dream Theater CD collection, or my whole Seven Dust collection, or my whole Christina Aguilera collection. Okay, I don't have a whole Christina Aguilera collection. I do have a couple, but anyway, maybe that's a future show down the line. A lot of rock and metal and stuff here, but I do have some oddball things. I'm getting myself sidetracked. But what I thought I would do is do something a little different, like I was mentioning the 3 formats. What albums do I own that are on all 3 formats, being vinyl, CD, and cassette? And it was about 2 years ago that I was going through some boxes in the garage, and I found a box of cassette tapes, which I thought I had gotten rid of a bunch, and I think I did. And sadly, I think I threw a bunch away, and because I did have a big cassette collection. But, as we, were younger, we listened to records maybe that our parents had and maybe bought a few. And then we kind of graduated to cassettes and went on to CDs. And I think with some people, when they went from one medium to the next, they were like, well, I don't need this. Or, I'm listening to cassettes and I'm not going to change everything over to CD. And eventually I did. So I started duplicating, I had stuff for cassette and I had stuff for CD. And back in the days when, you had a car, it had a cassette player, didn't have a CD player. Or maybe you were lucky and it had a cassette player, but you knew a friend I was that friend that knew how to hook up a CD player to your car. So I did that for my cousin and, a best friend. And, I think I may have done 3 in that year for friends' cars and stuff. So it was a matter of like, well, what device, like we were saying that back in the 80s and 90s, what player was I going to be using? If I had the boom box that we were taking outside, well, then I took my cassettes. If we were driving in the car, maybe in the latter part of the 90s, we all had CD players. And then I know LPs have been around, obviously since the 70s, but I think the resurgence was, just before COVID, and especially through COVID, people really started getting back into vinyl, as I did. So vinyl was kind of that thing that was like, oh, I had this on cassette when I was growing up, and I obviously have this on CD. And then when I found the cassettes, I found my 100 cassette holder. I'm going to show it here real quick, and this is stinking heavy. So to catch this on camera, is probably where I'll drop all this. So hopefully you can get this all in frame, which probably not. I have 4 left over. You can kind of see where some cassette singles are down here to be able to complete this. I told myself I'm only going to have the 4, or only have the 100. I'm not going to buy another one of these unless I could find another rack that I had outside. So these are all the ones that I had, and recently, I think when I found this and the remaining cassettes that I had, I think I had about half. So over the last year, I've gone to record stores and I have found various cassette tapes. So I've got about 4, and there's a couple in here I might replace out because they were like some comedy albums, which were cool. Like Bill Cosby's in here a couple times, and Dennis Leary and some other stuff. I really wanted it to be all music. So I'm kind of being picky and choosy. I'm not just looking for any four remaining cassettes to fill this up. I want to find ones that I had or go to a shop and, I'd like to find it in the wild rather than have to resort to eBay, but I might have to do with that with one of them. So the idea of putting this episode together was, and it really based it around the cassettes. What cassettes do I have that I also have a corresponding CD and vinyl? Even though the CDs are now the largest part of my collection, I have been acquiring a lot of vinyl in the last year or so. But CD or cassette, at one time was the, primary way that I listened to music in the 80s and the early part of the 90s until I bought my first CD in 1991, and that was White Lion's Main Attraction was the first CD that I got. And then having a car, I thought, well, I've got to find that on cassette. Did I find it on cassette? So that's what this episode is going to be. And normally when I do lists or collections, I do them in the 9. Now, here are the 9, trifecta, if you will, of albums and stuff. This is where I'm going to break the 9 rule a little bit because I only have 17. I thought about, I could do the first 9 and then do a part 2. So if this video gets too long and I'm like, this is a long video to show a collection on, then maybe I will break it up. But I'd like to try and do this in one. So I'm probably going to have some cuts in here throughout this video, only because I'm not going to have all 17 CDs and cassettes and vinyl everywhere. So I'll show one, go back to the back here, grab one, get this heavy thing off of my lap, and we'll go through it. There are actually 26 on the list. The other 9 that are not going to be in this list are the Kiss ones that I have. So I'll probably direct you over to Right Between the Eyes once that video is up. So watch our social media on Right Between the Eyes and Rogue Record Music if you like what you see here and you want to see I want to see what Kiss albums Rob is going to feature, then that's where you can go see that one. So do a little cross-pollinating between the two to get content on here and on Right Between the Eyes. And maybe I'll slip it into Rogue Record Music because from time to time I will talk about Kiss on this. But so I'm going to get this off my lap. There'll probably be a cut in the video here. Or if I dump this thing, then that could be for comedy feature. So what are the 17 albums that you are going to see here? Some may surprise you. Some may not. If you know me well enough, you've watched Right Between the Eyes, or even in the 8 videos that I've talked about, the 7 videos previously that I've talked about on this channel, you could probably guess some of them, but hopefully some will be some surprises. And it's just fun to pull out your CDs and cassettes and vinyls, and especially in the day and age when you were wanting to show your friends, like, hey, look at the new record I got, or look at the new cassette, or let's go drive around. You sit in the car, somebody's got their CD wallet opened or their cassette case holder open, and you're just going through, looking through stuff like, oh, I didn't know you had this, or I've never heard this before. Let's play this Richie Sambora album. So, sorry, Richie, you don't make the cut on this one. So, let's go through the 17 trifecta. And one of them, I just looked this word up. The quadfecta or the superfecta is 4. One of the albums on here I have on 4 forms of media. And no, I'm not talking 8-track, because that would have been cool. I have no 8 tracks. So, what is the other form of media? There's a couple other forms you could have it, but there's a full album on another form of media. So stick around. Let's see what that is. Here we go. The trifecta 17 trifecta records, albums, CDs, cassettes in Rob's collection here at Rogue Record Music. Let's get started. Real quick, I forgot to mention, this is also partnered with For the Record. It's a Facebook group that I'm a part of, helmed by Pasquale Veria, a good friend of mine that does a Kiss Army Nation podcast. And he knew there was a lot of us in the Kiss community that collect vinyl, not only just Kiss, but multiple bands. And so he started this group and kind of sent it out as private invites and said, if you know anybody that collects records and that type of stuff. Vinyl box sets and 45s. It's that type of a group that actually got me thinking about, well, what did I want to post? What's the next, record that I bought or I'm going to pick up? And that got me thinking about this actual episode. And I kind of ran it by Pasquale. I thought it'd be cool if there was a For the Record podcast. And like, well, I'm already doing a Rogue Record show. And I said, would you mind if I post an episode that is for showing vinyl collection? But I told him about the idea of the trifecta. He said, hey, I think that would be great. It'd be fun to do. So I'm going to put the link down in the Facebook group. If you collect vinyl or collect LPs, click the link and see what you think. It's a private group, and we'll let you in and kind of see what's going on. But it's just another way to share this medium of vinyl records that we all collect. So now back to the episode at hand. There's no particular order to this list. It's not like, oh, this is my favorite. I just went through alphabetical because a lot of us store things alphabetically if you're a music collector, or the people that you think are probably a little crazy or probably a little psychotic are the ones that just have a bunch of CDs and stuff in random places and they're not in order. That's an unorganized, that's a serial killer in my book. If you walk into somebody's house and their record collection or their CD or tapes or whatever are in mass order, just get out of there. Unless it makes some these are my favorite bands, and I put them here's Kiss, and then I put next to Aerosmith, and then it's still alphabetize correctly. So these are in alphabetical order. Like I said, no particular order of worst to best or whatever. So that way it's going to be easier for me just to go through and show these. So here we go. Enough rambling. The first one coming up is Aerosmith Pump. There we go. Get it on the screen there. So what a fun album. Of course, this was Love in an Elevator. There's the cassette there. And I may say it from time to time, but you can see that I had played it. So being that this is side one, it's at the end of side one. So I would have just started side two there. But, we've got Love in an Elevator. There it is on CD. This is actually the BMG Columbia House thing, tape a penny, get, 9 CDs free and then buy 3 over the next 3 years. And then we'll, take you to collections. So we just got smarter and put different names and PO boxes and addresses. And, I think I probably had 3 of these at one time. And then here is the vinyl for Pump. Now, this vinyl is not in great condition at all. I paid a little bit for, not a lot. I didn't pay $50 or $60, and I've got the insert still. But we were at an antique shop. It's not horrible, but it's got this weird. You see that smudge right up? I'm probably backwards here. Where's it at? Right up here. That is actually burnt into the vinyl. You can see some of the scratches here. This side is really clean. This is the side that I saw at the antique shop. And I should have pulled it out. Buyers beware. So I think I paid $40 for this, which, being that it was hard to come by at the time before they started repressing some of this stuff, that we had been at Trader's World in Dayton, Ohio, if you know where that's at. I was talking to the guy for quite a while and was looking at it, and he had to have known it was like that. He said he recently had just got it in. He said he hadn't got a chance to get a good look at it. I didn't pull it out of the sleeve and jacket other than it happened to be showing side 2. And I thought, oh, it looks great. It looks awesome. I should have pulled it out, flipped it over, but I kept getting pulled into a conversation, so I don't know if that was part of it. Like, hey, I know that's got a burnt mark on it. So it's kind of hard to play side 1 on this until I get past like the 3rd or 4th song. But still, what a fun, great album it was. Great time. I think Young Lust, Fine, Going Down, Love in an Elevator. I can't get to Love in an Elevator, Monkey on My Back, but what a great time to be an Aerosmith fan. And Permanent Vacation actually kind of starts my Aerosmith, fandom, and it starts from there. So there is Aerosmith Pump. So moving on to number 2 on the list of 17 of the trifecta that I have. This is one that is really kind of coveted, hard to get if you're a fan of hard rock and hair metal, classic rock, just blues hard rock. This is a band that was formed out of Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne, if you know what I'm talking about. I came to know this band through Kiss. The great late Eric Carr had passed away in 91, and Kiss announced that Eric Singer would be taking over the drum throne for Eric Carr, Eric Singer is one of my favorite drummers, along with Mike Mangini. But I wanted to know more about Eric Singer, and could I find anything? So reading some of the bands and artists that he had played with, I saw this band, and I had to go check it out to wonder what Eric Singer was going to sound like playing drums in Kiss. And I'm talking about Badlands with Jake E. Lee on guitar right here. And then we have Greg Chasson on bass and late Ray Gillen. What a phenomenal, phenomenal debut album. And I've got it on all 3 formats. And I found this one not that long ago. And as you can see, it is still sealed. So normally I'm all about, hey, music and toys are meant to be opened with. There's something about this album that I go, I do have a cassette player, but the fact that this one is still sealed, I think says something about the album that, I don't want to open it because of the rarity of this album. Not that I think I'm going to buy a car or a house with it, but you know what I mean, that I can play it on 2 other formats. And I liked that they didn't do like a side A, side B. It was West Side and East Side. And then I have the vinyl as well. This is a straight up first pressing. This is not a BMG. Where is it at there? Where you don't see the BMG barcode or anything like that on it. Just what a great, great album. High Wire and Winter's Call. Just killer album. And it still holds up today. Badlands. All right, number 3 on the list, we move to Britny Fox, Bite Down Hard. I don't know where the cassette went. I have the case. It's got to be in a box somewhere I haven't found. Hopefully I didn't leave it in a car I sold, but I know it's got to be around here somewhere. So here is the CD, and they just, I should say recently, probably a year or so ago, could be even 2 now, but pressed it on vinyl. And this is a really cool splatter version of vinyl. This is my favorite lineup of Britny Fox. So this is with Tommy Paris on lead vocals. And, Dizzy Dean Davidson was the original lead singer in Britny Fox, and he left to go form Black Eyed Susan after the Boys in Heat album. So this album came out in 1990, I believe. And I love this album. Again, right in the end of 1990 into 1991, grunge is really starting to break through the cracks of, modern rock music, and a lot of our hair metal bands are starting to fall by the wayside. And I think this album just came out at the wrong time. If it was just a year earlier, I think it would have done really, really well for Britny Fox. And it's a fantastic album, and Tommy does a great job in replacing Dizzy Dean Davidson. Songs like Louder, Liar, Closer to Your Love, I could read through. To me, this is a 10 out of 10. There's not a bad song on this. I mentioned the song Louder. The funny thing is, when they pressed this album, for whatever reason, they called the song Liar Bar. And it's pressed on the label that way, and it even says it on the vinyl, Bar. And you can see that the song is called, on the CD, Liar. Why they called it Bar, I have no idea. So that was somebody, with the track listing, all somebody had to do was have the artwork. The band has no idea why they called it Bar on the vinyl. Just something funny. So, Brittany Fox, Bite Down Hard. What a great album. If you haven't listened to this one, check it out. Okay, moving on to, let me do this right, number 4 on the list of 17 Trifecta albums that I have. This is arguably my favorite album by the band. I like the one before it, and I love the one before it, and I love the one after it, and even a few down the line. I'm a big fan of this band. We've talked about this particular album and reviewed it on Right Between the Eyes podcast, so you can check that out. Go back through the channel and see that. I'm talking about Def Leppard Adrenalized. Here's the CD version. This came out my senior year of high school, and I think there's something about your high school years that, and these are all original. I didn't buy these secondhand. These are mine from back in the day. You can see the CD's got a lot of love. So I was switching over from cassette to CD right at this point. I think when I had one, I bought the other. And then recently I picked up this on vinyl. I think it was probably 2 years ago. I'm saying recently. This is actually my first copy from Amazon. You can see it's got a little tear up here. I thought I grabbed, and it's kind of torn right here. So Amazon resent this to me, and it's back in my rack over there. And I said, "Do you want this copy back?" They said, "No, it was our problem, shipping error." So I have two copies of this. The record plays fine on both, but the cover was damaged. But what I was saying was there's something about your high school years, and especially getting into your senior year of high school. That's when, the end of your school year, your school career is ending, unless you're going to college or whatever. Those are a different set of members, but these are the people that you've gone through 12 years of school with. And there's something about that senior year, the music that you're listening to is just being ingrained and capsulized in your mind of those. Every moment you have your senior year is the last time you're doing this. It's the last, third football game of the season you're going to have, if that makes sense. This is the last Valentine's Day dance. This is the last homecoming dance. This is the last dance you're going to have at prom. Have you ever needed someone so bad? Played at our prom that year because I was asked. I knew the DJ. These are some of the bands and artists that I refer to as soundtrack songs. Soundtrack songs of your life. The music that you listen to at one of the pinnacle moments of your teen, adolescent years that you go back to as your comfort food, if you will, your comfort music. Your time traveling music when you want to remember a simpler time, or songs that have just held up over through the years and decades. Like the song still sounds as good as it did back in 1992. Let's Get Rocked, and Have You Ever Needed Someone So Bad? Stand Up, Kick Love into Motion. Some people say this is like a continuation of Hysteria. And I would agree. Some people say, oh, it's the B-sides that didn't get put on Hysteria. I think Adrenalized holds up on its own 30 plus years later and is a fantastic album. So that is my trifecta of Def Leppard. All right, number 5 on the list. Arguably one of my favorite bands of all time. Not talking about Kiss, but there are equal plateau and plane for me. They're with Kiss having retired in 2023 from touring. I can say this is my favorite touring band right now. I just recently saw them. I'm wearing their hat. One of their former drummers, Mike Mangini, is my favorite drummer of all time right there. Drum heads and posters and stuff. I'm talking about Dream Theater. What I know and understand of what I thought I knew about typical music I was listening to, where you just talked about Def Leppard. This came out in 1992 in July of that year, getting ready to come right into my senior year of high school. And this was on constant repeat. Huge influence on my playing as a drummer. I got it on cassette recently, probably about 6 months ago. I think I had this originally on cassette. So this became probably one of the casualties that I accidentally threw away of a bunch of cassettes that I no longer thought I wanted, or was in a box of stuff I didn't look through. So I got this at a local record shop, and this is actually the BMG, Columbia House version, because there's their sticker right there. So this should be a clear clear cassette tape, but this, when BMG was doing them in the early part, they did them in this until they started doing them in clear, or before they actually really got them from the record stores. This just came out last year. I never got original pressing because by the time that this album would come out in 1992, pressings in the U.S. were very, very hard, unless, I don't know if it was available through BMG at all. So you had to get it through overseas. So Dream Theater through Rhino Records started re-releasing all of Dream Theater's back catalog, most of them, save a couple albums when they changed record labels in the beginning or towards the tail end here. But what a great, great album there. They put out a greatest hits album a few years ago called Greatest Hit, and 21 other pretty cool songs. Their hit comes off this album, Pull Me Under. Just what a fantastic album. Progressive metal, rock at its finest. I've always said, if you threw Rush, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Pink Floyd, Journey into a blender, you would get Dream Theater. I cannot overstate, understate, whatever you want to say, one of my favorite bands of all time. And if I'm being honest in this moment, even with all this Kiss stuff around, I think Dream Theater has crept up to number one. I just recently saw them last week in concert, when a show that I didn't think I was going to have the opportunity to go to. That's a story for another time. But Images and Words, their second album and the album that launched them into the stratosphere as far of progressive rock fans concerned, and they are out celebrating their 40th anniversary right now with their new album, Parasomnia. What a brilliant album this is. Okay, coming in, where we at? Number 6 on the list. This to me was one of those seismic shift albums that kind of shook the landscape, and not since 1978 was a multiple album put out at the same time, referring to my favorite band, Kiss, put out 4 solo albums at the exact same time. This band put out a double album at the same time. I'm sure there's probably been other double albums been put out, but trying to go back through, and an artist put out 2 albums at the same time, not a double album, 2 separate albums that you could buy, or 4 separate albums, or 3 albums. I'm scratching my brain. I'm sure somebody in the comments will say, Electrolyte Orchestra did this and blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. I'm trying to think of another artist that put out 2 albums, same time, same day. They could have packaged it together as one album, but they decided, hey, if I only have enough money for one album, this album is $22, and this Elton John record is $10, I'm going to buy the $10. Something like that. I'm talking about Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. Now, 2 doesn't make this list because I have not bought the vinyl for 2 yet. Shame on me, I should have. So I was already a Guns N' Roses fan because of Appetite for Destruction. This was an album I was eagerly anticipating. Bought it day of. I actually bought Use Your Illusion 2 first, and then a week later bought the second one, the Use Your Illusion 1 on cassette. But this is the one that I have for the collection. Bought Use Your Illusion 2 a day of release. So here is my cassette, original cassette from back in the day. This is worn. Like I was saying earlier, showing one of the other albums, you could see that it's been played, going, what song did I stop at? I didn't get to the end, didn't rewind. I think there's something cool there, like talk about a time capsule. Where was I at in my life? What was the last time I listened to this album? So it's got to be, it's probably as long as this is, we're probably still at Dust and Bones. They recently put out the anniversary version of Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. What a fantastic album. This screams 1991 for me all over the place. This puts me right back in my junior year of high school, and then this album would carry me through my senior year of high school. This is another one of those soundtrack albums of life that if I want to go in my time capsule back to a simpler time when the only job I had to do was mow a yard and deliver some newspapers, I would have been listening to this album at the time of doing that, as well as with the Dream Theater album that I just showed before. So that, I forgot to mention, that is a time capsule album or a soundtrack album for life. But Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1. All right, I love talking about this band. This was the first concert I ever saw, so this breaks the hair metal, hard rock thing. So anybody growing up in the 60s would have known and probably loved this band. And being that they were my first concert, my freshman year of high school, in 1989, I'm talking about Davey, Mickey, Mike, and Peter, the Monkees. So this is their Pull It album that came out in 1987. And like I said, I would see them in 1989. So they put this album out, went on tour to support it, and then did like an 30th anniversary tour. My math is fuzzy right now, but I love when we were getting colored CDs. I keep saying CDs because that's what I've collected the most. Cassettes back in the day. So when we got away from the white and beige, we started getting the clear. Then record places were like, hey, I think we can do some other colored versions of stuff. So that's cool. Here is my CD. I forget when they remastered this. This came out, like I said, this actually came out in 87, if I didn't say that. 95 was the reissue of Pull It for CD, which, they kept up with the water theme. Now, Mike Nesmith was not in the band at this time. He was only with them when they would play in California, so it was just the trio, and that's the version of the Monkees that I saw. And this was a grail that I didn't realize I was going to be able to find, which allows it to make this, finding it actually on an LP at a local antique shop about 15 minutes from me. My hands were shaking. And it was sitting up in the front rack at a dealer's booth, and I could not believe I was seeing this album. I don't even know if it exists, if I even knew it previously existed up until I saw it. I knew somebody that had a 45 of it, but to have a full-blown LP album, I adore this album. I love this. I love that, as much as I love their older stuff, I could sing Daydream Believer and Last Train to Clarksville. This was my era of Monkees, and I had something brand new. And have people go, you like the Monkees? Like, how did you find out the Monkees? Well, thanks to MTV back in the day when they didn't have a lot of music videos. They were putting anything that any artist had done music-wise, and the Monkees had a TV series, and that took up a lot of MTV's time until artists started making music videos. So that's how I became a Monkee fan. And I'm so glad that this made this list, that just this year I found this album. This year, this is a pickup of this year. I still can't believe that I have this. I may listen to this after we're done. I love this album. Coming in at number 8 on my list, this is also my favorite album by this band. They had a new lead singer. Technically, I think they had the new lead singer in 1991, but it would be another 3 years before this album was put out. For a lot of fans of this band, this is a favorite album, if some's not their favorite album. Shout of a Devil usually gets mentioned, or Dr. Feelgood, and rightfully so. But my favorite album by this band is the self-titled, or what is referred to as Motley Crue 94. So I have all the yellow versions of this, and I'll explain when I get to the vinyl. So this is the first album with a new member to the band, and John Corabi replaces Vince Neil, which he only does one album, technically two if you count Quaternary EP that they put out of like 4 solo songs of each one of the members, and then a full band track. But I bought this album day of release. This is actually a promo copy of this album that I received. I had the red version, so they did put out 2 albums at the same time. They put out this white version, I can't tell colors or media. Put out the yellow version, and then they had a red version. I think I ended up giving away the red version of this. I kind of want to get it back, so I have all of them. I think the cassettes might have only been in yellow, because it's the only one that I've ever had. There's probably a red one out there somewhere, but I remember having both red and yellow CD, and I found this promo copy, so I think I ended up giving my red one away to a friend. And then I found this on a bootleg site, or you can call this a counterfeit, because it never came out on colored vinyl before, and the pressings were very, very scarce. This is actually a green pressing. So officially, unofficially, I have all 3, but I have the album that I can listen to on vinyl. Hooligan's Holiday, Misunderstood, Power to the Music, Uncle Jack, a very heavy album for Motley Crue. And for me, hearing John Corabi sing in Motley Crue, especially when he was singing the older Vince Neil stuff, I went, that's the voice that Motley Crue should have always had. I'll probably get comments down here, if not trying to throw shade at Vince Neil, but I would love to have John Corabi back in Motley Crue. He sounds great, and Vince just sounds like Vince. But I love this album. For a lot of Crue fans, this is the best sounding Motley Crue album in production. And for a lot of us, this is our favorite album of Motley Crue. No chart-topping singles off of this one. Hooligan's Holiday was a moderate rock hit, but talk about grunge just dominating everything. But this is Motley Crue kind of giving the middle finger to the music industry and being like, we're going to do what we're going to do, and this is who Motley Crue is. Again, I love this album. I also consider this one of my soundtrack albums. I graduated high school by this point, but this album is just so ingrained in me that, I just love this album to death. Motley Crue, 94. All right, number 9 on my list here. This is an album that, again, a lot of these will probably fall into the category of, soundtrack for life album, or, whatever I said, your time capsule album. If the Monkees was the first concert that I saw, the first rock concert I saw was Cinderella being the headliner, Lynch Mob being the opening act slot. And technically the co-opening band was this band. I also just found this one 2 weeks ago. Well, probably almost a month ago now. Wow, it's crazy. It's almost a month now that we're in October. My wife and I's anniversary was in September. I found this album finally after 35 years of hoping that I was going to come across this album. I love this album to death. I think it's a masterpiece of an album. If you're just a fan of good rock and roll, great harmonies, and just, I don't know, Nelson. Some people are going to go, Nelson. I love the After the Rain album. What a fantastic, brilliant album. You want to talk about the seismic shift. This album comes out in 1991. And within 2 months, Nirvana's Nevermind is released. Totally changes the landscape. Nelson gets the distinction of being the end bookmark of the hair metal, rock era. And I found it on vinyl. This is another one of those, like the Monkees album. I was all but shaking at Fat Dog Records that I couldn't believe. I almost didn't look through the ends because I thought, I'm not going to find it. This album was going for crazy, ridiculous prices online. And to be able to walk out of the shop for $50 with this album was a steal in my book. But songs like, Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection, I Can Hardly Wait, More Than Ever, Only Time Will Tell, Desire, Fill Me Up, Will You Love Me? Just a great album, great song. I can't say enough about Nelson. To be able to have all 3 of these now, finally, as I'm doing it weird. A brilliant album. I still get tongue-tied that I'm actually holding the vinyl LP of this album. Do yourself a favor. Go back to 1991 and listen to some Nelson. To me, it still holds up. I don't care. What a great album. What a great album. Number 10 on the list. This is another favorite band of mine in a different genre of music, but in the same genre of music, if you will. We're going to get into some Christian rock right here, a style of music I love. I play in my church's praise band. And the first Christian rock band that I ever saw that I was like, I've told this story before on this channel, I believe, not wanting to go to the state fair because I didn't want to see some cheesy Christian rock band sing about Jesus. Like, I don't know. Was blown away by how relatable the music was. The lyrics didn't seem cheesy. They made sense. They spoke to me. I'm talking about Petra, Unseen Power. I keep saying it. Time capsule album, soundtrack, life album, whatever you want to call it. This album spoke to me in ways that I wasn't prepared for. I love this album. So my original cassette from back in the day, I love this thing, wore this thing out. I have it on CD, my original CD, which I think is fantastic. And they recently remastered the CD for vinyl for the first time, and I did a remastering for the CD from, what is it, Guider, if I'm even saying that right. So the remastered CD, which looks fairly similar. They kind of updated the artwork a little bit. I don't think they did the normal CD from Word looks like this. There's a Louis Weaver right over here. Great drummer. So they kind of redid the packaging. I think I said Word. I think it's Curb. Yeah. Oh, it is Word that did it originally, and then Curb and Word together did it for the remastering. And just what a great album. Sight Unseen, In the Likeness of You. This is actually produced by the producer of it did Kansas, and his name is escaping me at the moment. Hopefully I'll put it down here at the bottom. But if you're into this kind of thing, or if you just like classic rock, I think you'll get a treat out of this, and maybe it'll speak to you as well. Petra, Unseen Power. All right, coming in at number 10. This album probably would have been considered a soundtrack album or a time capsule album, or what do you want to call it, from my high school days. But this came out in April of 1993, and I graduated in May of 93. So being able to have those memories of that, still my favorite album by the band, at a tumultuous time for the band. A severely changing landscape with grunge coming in by 93. Looking back at this album now, people really look fondly, I think for the most part, on this album, given who the guitar player was. In 92 at the MTV Video Music Awards, CeCe DeVille punches Bret Michaels in the face after they leave the stage, and CeCe DeVille was kicked out. And enter Richie Kotzen on the 1993 release of Native Tongue. Now, at the time, this is more of a blues, hard rock album that Richie would influence a lot into this band. Something I think Bret was really akin to, and the rest of the band kind of, were stepping out of the hair metal roots a little bit and doing just a more straight-ahead rock blues album. But it gets lost and buried because it's not CeCe DeVille. It's not Talk Dirty to Me. It's not Nothing But a Good Time. But there's some great songs in here. Fast forwarding some 30 odd years later, that this album, people go, man, Richie Kotzen's a great player, a great singer in his own right. And people started to go back to this album and say, man, I did not give it the love and attention that it needed back in 1993. But with Soundgarden, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam, this album just gets gets lost. Stand would be the big single. They do have a decent single with this, a top 10 single, but the rest of the album just kind of suffers again, buried under the weight of grunge. Stand is still a song that they play live from this album, but a really, really good album. If you're like, I'm not into the hair metal thing, there was a song in here called Theater of My Soul that's really good. Just a fun album. My favorite song, if I can use a little swear word, it's the title of it, Bastard Son of a Thousand Blues. Great song. Closing track on this album, Poison Native Tongue, makes my trifecta. Again, I think it says a lot that I have all three formats, that this is my favorite album by the band. As much as I love Nothing But a Good Time and all of that, this is the Poison that I like. We're getting to the tail end here of the list. We are on number 12 of the 17 trifecta albums that I have. Again, another soundtrack of life album, a time capsule album. Came out, again, my senior year of high school. I really wanted the song from this album, Days Gone By, to be played at our graduation, but we're not playing any of that. We're gonna sing Friends by Michael W. Smith, which is a good song. Don't get me wrong, but this song lyrically from this album just says all about your high school time, or just the time of days gone by. I know could be a sappy song. What great songs are on this album? I'm talking about Slaughter, Wildlife. I about said Wildlife. So this is the cassette version that I had back in 1992. I played this over and over and over. Coming off their debut album, I was so eagerly anticipated for this. I love the debut album, but I love this one even more. Again, that senior year of high school, this album just hanging after marching band. We'd be playing this album. My friends and I, we'd be driving back and forth different places. Of course, I got it on CD. Of course, it has to make this list. In 1990 something, 98, 99, they would go and do a definitive remaster of the album. So they put them all out on CD. So I have all their collection that they remastered. And then 2 years ago, I believe, Kiss My Wax Records partnered with Slaughter to get the rights to produce their album officially for the first time on vinyl. There was a few pressings, but to be able to get it in the U.S., a very limited quantity. And if you did the package, you got a nice box set and a bunch of LPs, and the main album is signed by all surviving band members. Tim Kelly here would pass away in a tragic car accident in the late 90s. But what a great album. The Wildlife, Reach the Sky. My favorite Slaughter song, Real Love. The late Shannon Doherty as featured in that music video. Shake This Place, Streets of Broken Heart, Do You Know? And like I said, Days Gone By. And Slaughter did a dedication. This came out right after Freddie Mercury and Eric Carr of Kiss had passed away, and they dedicate that song, Days Gone By, to both Freddie Mercury and the late, great Eric Carr of Kiss. And Slaughter's first tour would be with Kiss. So what a great album this is. It's probably right up there in my top 10 albums of all time. I love this album so much. All right, where are we at? 13, 14, 15, 16 are all by the same band. Now, aside from Kiss, this is the longest stretch I have. It works out that I have 9 for Kiss, and I have 4 from the mighty Van Halen. My era of Van Halen. I'm close with some David Lee Roth stuff to be able to have 3 formats for, but I don't. This is the one that there are 4 formats for one album, and I think it's really cool that happens with Van Halen, and we'll get there when we get there. So this was a band that I was aware of Van Halen, obviously, growing up and liking music. I, knew about Jamie's Crying and Jump and Panama and having MTV, but wouldn't it be really until Sammy Hagar joins in that I would really fall in love with Van Halen. I liked Van Halen. I thought Van Halen was cool. I had the first Van Halen album. I think I had Diver Down, and I had 1984 because, like, Sample Boxes of Tide, I think everybody had 1984 in their, mail or record store. I would get that a little later. But when Sammy came in, something just clicked. I think I was also at the right age when Sammy Hagar came in, being in that junior high. I liked 5150. I liked Summer Nights, but the first Van Halen album that I would really buy and go, oh, this is great, so I had to get 5150, would be OU 812 and the big song When It's Love. And again, looking at the cassette right here, I go, is that the place for When It's Love? Did I just finish When It's Love? Where's the track listing? Don't have my readers on, is getting older. When It's Love. And on the CD, the track listing is not in the correct order, which I always thought was weird. They have When It's Love as the last track. Yeah, When It's Love is song number 2, so that's got to be about it. I don't know, maybe I'll have to put it in. So I was looking at the CD. Obviously, we have the CD for this. I love this album. Not my favorite Van Halen album, but this is the gateway album to get me into falling in love with Van Halen. On my family's trip to Myrtle Beach, I was able to get an original pressing, which is cool. So there's no BMG label. So to have this on vinyl was the first Sammy Hagar era version of Van Halen. At the time, they had put out the David Lee Roth remastered vinyl collection, and I was like, will they do the Sammy Hagar? There was a little rift between Sammy and the band at the time, and then after Eddie's passing, I think Sammy was able to patch things up with Eddie and Wolfie to get the albums to come out. So last year was able to get the repressing, the 2024 version of OU 812. When It's Love, classic Van Halen song. This is my era of Van Halen. So we're just going to keep this moving on here. No starts or stops. I did pull out all of the Van Halen stuff. Probably my favorite Van Halen album of all time right here. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. If you acronym it, you can figure out the other name for this album. Pound Cake, Run Around. The massive hit Right Now comes off of this album. To me, this is the pinnacle of the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen. Now, granted, there's only going to be one more full album after this, and I like it just as well. But I rewound this one all ready to get back to side one to start over. Pleasure Dome. Just what a brilliant album this is. There's the CD, In and Out, Man on a Mission, The Dream is Over, a very, very heavily underrated song from this album. 316, a little instrumental for Eddie Van Halen's son Wolfie being born. Top of the World right there. If you listen to the very end of the song Jump from 1984 album, the last guitar chords that you hear is actually the start of the song Top of the World on this album that Eddie would resurrect from 1984 and put on the 1991 album of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Again, this is an album that is a soundtrack time capsule album for me in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. I love this album. And thanks to the remastered box set that came out, I have this on vinyl now. There were pressings made available in 1991. They were really kind of scarce and really kind of expensive to get. So be able to get a box set of all of the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen albums. This to me is a must own. If you're a Van Halen fan, you need a Sammy album. This is the one to get. And if you're a Sammy fan, you know how great this album is. Seeing them on the MTV Video Music Awards in 1992, the same Video Music Awards that CeCe DeVille punches Bret Michaels in the face. Van Halen opened that show on a very rare TV appearance that Van Halen would make. Great album. Okay, we are to the Superfecta, the Quadfecta is what they're calling it. This is the album I have 4 formats for. I'll show you the fourth last. The double CD, or double C. See, I keep saying it. The double cassette version. Here are my actual cassettes from 1992. Van Halen Live, right here, right now. It is for the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge Tour. And the first time that we get to hear, even though Sammy was singing older David Lee Roth songs, to have it a recorded version that we could hear him doing Jump and Panama. You Really Got Me. Those might be the only 3 that are on here. Everything else is all Sammy Hagar era Van Halen and some Sammy Hagar solo stuff. So there is the cassettes. Here's what they call the digipack. This is so flimsy. They would eventually put it in a normal CD jewel case. So this became also a soundtrack album my senior year of high school because this came out in 1992. So I was kind of getting to carry over this album because this is the tour for the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album tour. So that is kind of sort of not that, but this. So to announce the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen's box set was coming, they put this out first for Record Store Day, and it is the quadruple 30th anniversary 4LP edition, and it's on red vinyl. I don't know if I can get to it easy for this one. I'll show it at some point, but it's on clear red vinyl, which I believe is what it says. Includes 3 bonus tracks down here, which if you got the CD, you got a song that's not on the cassette. If you got the DVD, you got a version that's not on the cassette or CD. And if you got the VHS, you got a song that's not on cassette or CD. So the other format that I have is the VHS. So being able to watch the concert of the album that they recorded. And there is that already wound and ready to go. So Van Halen Live right here, right now, which means there is a DVD version of this that I did not pick up that I would like to try and get. So on this one, what is the bonus song that they talk about? I believe The Dream Is Over is on. There it is. The Dream Is Over is on this. And one of the other songs is on the DVD, and then the cassette has one as well. So if you put all 3 together, you can get a version. So the CD kind of gets left out of the bonus content, but so trying to use the other mediums to, like, hey, not only just buy the CD, but buy the cassette, buy the DVD, buy the VHS. So Van Halen Live right here, right now on vinyl, cassette, CD, and VHS, which also means I need to find the DVD so I can have 5. But that's pretty cool that I have 5 different ways to consume one album. That's pretty cool. And the last album to feature Sammy Hagar full album is Balance, 1995's Balance album. Again, into the grunge phase, Van Halen was really unaffected by that. It's a little darker in tone. The song Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do is written actually about Kurt Cobain's suicide. That Sammy Hagar tackles that, and what a brilliant album this is. This is really close to my favorite Van Halen album. And we've got the Balance album on CD right here. 5 albums from Van Halen of the Sammy Hagar era, all 5 going multi-platinum. Killer album. Not Enough is a brilliant ballad from Sammy on this album. There's just some really good tracks. Big Money, Amsterdam. And then, yes, on vinyl from the box set of the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen, which I have a little smudge in here, which I thought was inside the vinyl itself, but it's not. Again, a great album from Van Halen. Really close to my favorite Sammy Hagar era Van Halen stuff. But you can't go wrong, in my mind, with the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen. I know the purists will say, it's Dave, it's Dave, it's Dave. From a time that I started listening to Van Halen, Sammy Hagar was the lead singer of Van Halen and is my preferred version of Van Halen. All right, that leaves us with one more, and I also brought it up here, so that way I would not have to dig, as I'm trying to do right now. A little cut. Okay, we're back. I didn't pull out the cassette tape for whatever reason, so I decided to put some other stuff away, so I don't have as much to put away from the Van Halen stuff as I did. This also is the last one. This is number 17, and this would be the first album that I would buy on CD, which makes it extra special for me. I saw the video on MTV, and I really wanted this. I was a fan of the band, but I wasn't a massive fan of the band. To me, the guitar player Vito Bratta has said, at the time this album came out, if he were to die, he could die happy, knowing that he refers to this as his swan song, referring to Led Zeppelin and saying this is probably the finest work we've ever done. And I would agree with it. I'm talking about White Lion, Main Attraction. This is a 10 out of 10. You would talk about time capsule, songs, albums of your life, a soundtrack of your life, whatever I'm trying to say that I said that thing was. There's the cassette and going, what song was I listening to? I'm always just enamored by that. I want to say I was probably on side 2 listening Till Death Do Us Part. But what a brilliant album. There it is. The very first CD that I would ever buy, as I just about launched it here. The hours I spent listening when it was the only CD I had. And I quickly had to go out and get it on cassette because I had a car at the time that had a cassette deck, not a CD player yet. So this was for home. This is for the car. But I love this album. Lights and Thunder is a great opening. Broken Heart is a killer tune. It was actually an older White Lion song that they resurrected for this album. Love Don't Come Easy was the video that I was referring to that I saw on MTV. It's Over. War Song. A great song about soldiers coming home from war and not being respected. Till Death Do Us Part, Out with the Boys. She's Got Everything and I Want It, and the song Farewell to You would be a great farewell. This is the last album for this lineup. Even Mike Tramp would go out and do albums called Remembering White Lion or Songs of White Lion. This is the last official White Lion album with the band. And talk about a grail, being able to find this at a local record store not that far away from me. I believe this is an original. Oh, this is actually a BMG pressing. It's still in the original shrink wrap. Normally I pull that off, but I didn't for whatever reason. So there's the BMG label right there. Again, this is about one of the only ways you can get records at the time. But kind of a fitting way to end this video with this album. I just have, again, I think when it's the first of something, I mean, I had what seemed like a million cassettes, and eventually we'll have thousands of CDs, vinyl records. I think you remember the first of some of your stuff, especially getting into that high school age, coming in and out of sophomore into junior year of high school, and seeing that, the graduating year of 92, 93 is around the corner. There was just something special about this. I was delivering newspapers in our town at the time, and this became an album I listened to a lot. It is in my top 10 albums of all time. I don't know. There's just something special about this album. I think, again, just because it was the first CD, that it's the only one I had to listen to for so long until, so long. It was probably a couple weeks when, I bought Firehouse, and then Kiss eventually came out with Revenge and so on. And then I went down the rabbit hole of CDs, as you could see with the wall behind me. So I'm hoping in one of the next reviews that I do, and maybe I ought to do this. Maybe I ought to pick this album to go through and review this album, being it was the first CD that I ever bought. And it's a lot of what I have here. And we can look at the album and look at the cassette and kind of do this whole trifecta thing together. But I thought this would be a fun way to go through a collection. And eventually I'll do, here's all my Def Leppard CDs, here's all my Kiss CDs and all my Dream Theater and Bobby Brown and Michael Jackson and all that stuff. But I thought doing this, a trifecta of the albums that I have, that I could say I have 3 of, and I had 17 in my collection. Technically, I have 26 because the other 9 are going to be featured on Right Between the Eyes. So I got to get that recorded and set up here, but I got to do that with Brant. So that's going to end it for this episode. Thanks for checking out. Like and subscribe to the show. Click the bell so you don't miss anything. And I'm hoping to get more episodes out in a more relatively faster pace because I just want to sit back, relax, and talk about all this great music that I've accumulated some 40 some odd years now and share it with you guys. So until we spin the rack and see what's next on Rogue Record Music, take care. Bye.